Okay. Tēnā koutou katoa, everyone. Welcome to the Council Ordinary Meeting on Wednesday, the 25th of August, 2021. And yeah, just like to welcome you all here and just acknowledge everyone who's joining us. Normally I acknowledge everyone who's in presence and virtually, but we're all virtual now. So just acknowledge everyone virtually who's virtually now and those who will see it later on with the recording. So welcome. And just like to acknowledge everyone in the media gallery as well, and those who are going to present in public forum. And also just like to acknowledge our relationship with Rangi Marae. I'm not sure that we've got any representatives here today, but just acknowledge that partnership. And because this is I wouldn't call it a special time, but it's a different time. I just like to take a little bit of time just to acknowledge all our essential workers who are at the front face of our COVID response nationally. That's our frontline workers in the supermarkets, essential businesses, our own council management and staff who are doing a fantastic job, and those who are doing the wider picture, delivering the vaccines, doing the COVID testing, and also those social services, the food banks, and that support that we're all seeing. And there's all sorts of networks going around, including in our community. And acknowledge the community members who are caring for others by making those phone calls and just checking that everyone is okay. So to show that, I would just like everyone to join me for about 10 seconds worth of applause just to recognise that. So we can all join in applause. So thank you, everyone. It's good to do that. So I'd like to start with a karakia, please. And Rob, would you mind leading the karakia?
Sure. Me noi tātou. Mai te pai maunga raro ki te tai, mai te awa tonga raro ki te awaraki. Tēnei te hāpori awhi ai e taratahi. Whano, hara mai te toki, haumi e, hui e, tai ki e.
Kia ora, Rob. Thank you for that. So we now start with the agenda, and we'll take apologies first. We have an apology from Rebecca Bagantz, and we must congratulate her and Josh on the birth of young Summer last week. Are there any other apologies?
No.
No other apologies. Okay. Can I have a mover for the apologies, please? Dale, and a seconder. Brian, all those in favour? Raise your hands, please. Yep. Anyone against? No, carried. Thank you. Conflicts of interest declaration. Have we got any interest declarations? No. I have one. I just want to acknowledge on item 7.3 to do with the approval of the changes for the mayor's claims and expenses. I'll be abstaining from that vote. So can we have those noted, please? Yep.
In relation to that, as I'm Deputy Chair of Audit and Risk, do I also have a conflict or not? Wasn't sure on that one.
No. Okay, so we have those acknowledged. Thank you. And now we'll move straight into public forum. And in public forum, I'd like to welcome Roger Bolter to the desk, I suppose. And as you know, Roger, with public forum, you have 5 minutes, and please allow time for questions if you like. So it's all yours, Roger.
Right, thank you. Yeah, I'm Roger Bolter, I'm a concerned citizen. I want to say that I'm talking about governance issues, and I want to say, firstly, I'm behind all of you as councillors. I think you've all chosen something very honourable, and I want to honour all of you. I'm not, the Times Age has sometimes implied this is a divided council, and there's another Times Age thing. I think the Times Age have done a good job in their journalism, but I'm very concerned about what they're reporting. But to try and depersonalise this, I'm going to talk about councillors X, Y, and Z, not names, because this is not about personalities, it's about lessons. Some of this you couldn't make up. I mean, some of you are aware of this. Councillor X had been in dialogue with constituents, and Councillor Y associated with that. An email trail was inadvertently sent to the interim CEO, who sent it to the mayor, who sent it to the councillors, one of whom sent it to the Times Age. So hence that story I just showed. And Councillor X was, some people felt, had been breaking the code of conduct for councillors. Quite separately, separate issue was that Councillor X felt that Councillor Z had been bullying, and that was based on something different, a social media trail. Now, none of this brings council into, it shows council in a very good light. The code of conduct is all about protecting the good name of council. So I think we've got to do something to raise council's standing. And what I'm suggesting is if you can rise above becoming above being politicians and become statesmen and stateswomen. I had a look at the code of conduct, and it does say if you receive confidential information, it should stay confidential. And that, I think, would include emails which weren't intended for you. So there's also, if there's a breach in the code of conduct, you see the chief executive officer. And there's a good reason. This is about a team. You don't want breaches in the code aired in public. It should be sorted out without embarrassment to the people involved or to council. So it shouldn't be in the pages of the Times Age. You shouldn't be quoted in the Times Age saying ex-council has broken this. The moral I draw from that is if you're pointing a finger at someone, you've got 3 fingers pointing back at you. Each person, look, am I breaking the code? Now, some of the concerns were the Councillor Y wanted ammunition with which to attack the long-term plan, and this was seen as undermining council. In actual fact, the long-term plan was at draft stage, so it's quite in order. The more eyes on the long-term plan, the better, especially as the people he was talking about, I understand, are retired chartered accountants, who better to add some value. And I've seen Councillor Z's social media trail. I don't think he was a bully. Just because he's defending council staff, it's not obligatory to see council staff in a bad light. So this is all healthy. What X, Y, and Z is doing is all healthy, is what politicians should do. I'm concerned about advisory groups as well. They can be really good if they draw views from the community into council, but where they can fall down is if they give certain views a seat at the top table in formulating council strategy, spending proposals, and so on, and they keep others out. That's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned that 2 examples. A couple of years ago,
excuse me, Roger, I'll just interrupt just for a sec. You're just about out of time. So if you could just
right.
both of that's all right.
Can I go straight to the conclusion? Right, yeah, well, the conclusion, I was going to say the clock tower and the Trails Master Plan were examples, but I go straight to the conclusion. Some things that are should be kept confidential are being passed around. Some things which should be open for public scrutiny are kept confidential. Some people have mentioned the Ombudsman, the Auditor General, the Privacy Commissioner, the Press Council, or a judicial review. I'm not interested in any of that. I'm interested in the next election. So I'd urge you to all raise your game because these will be election issues. If you raise your game, I think you could get voted in. If you don't, you may not. So become statesmen and stateswomen.
Thank you, Roger.
Right.
Just quickly, elected members, are there any questions? No, I'll just check. I'll just screen sharing, so I'll just check the other screen. I don't see any questions. So thank you very much, Roger. I'm sure we've taken on board what you've said. So thank you for coming along and presenting in public forum.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the Youth Council views on the agenda items. And Glenda, have we got a Youth Council report?
So just updating you on the Youth Council, Bailey from Masterton is now working actively with the Youth Council in Masterton, and we've got Tammy working alongside her. So we are looking at doing some advisory groups. So watch this space, they are coming back.
That's fantastic. It's really good to get that interpretation of what we're doing. Okay, so we'll just move on to onto the confirmation of the minutes. So we got item 6.1, minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 30th of June 2021. So we all had a look at them, and we need to decide whether they're true and accurate. So is there any comment reflecting that? No comment? Okay, so I'm just going to go straight to the recommendation. Sorry, I'm just getting used to screen sharing. So the recommendation is that they're a true and accurate report. Can I have a mover, please?
I'll move that, Robin.
Moved by Robin and a seconded. Jill. All those in favour? All right, it's carried. Thank you. So now we move on to the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 12th of July 2021 on page 19. So again, are they a true and accurate record? Is there any comment on that? Can I have a mover then, please? Moved by Steve and seconded by Dale. All those in favour? Raise your hand. Anyone against? That's carried. Okay, thank you. So now we go to, just give me a sec, I'll just I've just lost my page numbers, sorry. So now we're going to the release of the public excluded minutes from the extraordinary council meeting on the 12th of July. And that's, the recommendation is that we agree to move them out of public excluded. Is there any comment or discussion on that? Rob.
Sorry, just struggling to find my unmute button. Do we need to adjust that motion? So we're not moving the meeting out of public excluded. We're agreeing to move the minutes out of public excluded. Do we need to explicit?
Yep. Oh, we can do that, Rob.
Have I made the, yeah, so just amend the recommendation to move the minutes, and you might even be specific about the specific minutes, being the meeting on the 12th of July, out of public excluded.
Okay, so Sarah, are you all right with that? Taking note of that, so agrees to move the minutes of the public exclude meeting 12th of July 2021 out of public excluded. Any other comment? Okay, can I have a mover for that, please? Moved by Rob, seconded by Jill. All those in favour, raise your hand. Thank you. Anyone against? No, that's carried. Thank you. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to change the agenda around because Anna Nelson from Destination Waipa has joined us. So item 7.7 we're going to now bring up on now. So the report is from Glenda and Anna, but I'll hand it over to Anna. So welcome, Anna, and just acknowledge the work that DW is doing currently in the current situation we are, and especially keeping in touch with all our tourism operators. So you might want to touch on that as well, but it's over to you now.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Well, I mean, the report that you've all seen, I absolutely welcome any questions you have on that. In short, two key things. We're still tracking really well, performing really well as a region. Secondly, the stat money that we've been granted by the government has been hugely beneficial in helping us be competitive with the rest of the regions when it comes to marketing, but also help us develop a really robust destination management plan, which will take us well into the future. You would have noticed in the accounting that we haven't spent all of the money that we were allocated. We have an extension that was granted by MB with that contract until the end of this calendar year to complete those activities. We have just also, you may have seen in the news recently, we've been granted an additional 400,000 to keep going with the great work which we've been doing, which is really exciting. We still have to do the contracting process with that, and it will be an extension on the current contract that we've been working with MB. But it's a real gift that I can assure you Destination Wairarapa is not making the very most of for the future, that's for sure. Going back to our performance as a region, which sort of talks to where we're at the moment under COVID conditions. When it was the last lockdown back in March, it was an incredibly scary time for our tourism industry across the country, really. Nobody knew what would happen. Our tourism industry went from hero to zero overnight. It was incredibly frightening. We as a region have done exceptionally well. We came out of the blocks running, and quite frankly, we haven't stopped. And this is right across the region. As you'll see in the graphs, the performance for every of the council regions, so South Wairarapa, Carterton and Masterton, the performance is up, spend is up right across the board, which is a fantastic trend. And I guess as a result, and without wanting to sound too crass, if we had to have a second lockdown, this is actually the ideal time for it to happen for us as a region. I'm not talking about anyone else in the country, any other regions, but for us in particular, our operators have been running for a long time and they're actually quite exhausted. So in this short time frame, most tourism operators, hospitality, are actually feeling pretty comfortable. They're taking a breather, a well-earned rest. They're, I wouldn't say they're completely relaxed, because of course, if this drags on any longer, that's a whole different ball game. But currently, this time of the year, normally they'd be taking breaks anyway. And we don't, in August, we don't have too many large-scale events that the removal of them would cause too much economic impact on the region. That's not to say that there isn't some frustration and some concern, because as I mentioned earlier, if this continues on as we get into September, that's the beginning of our busy period and our events start to amp up. And I think probably the biggest frustration is the government extending lockdowns by days at a time. If you're a business, and I mention this is across a number of industries, but particularly for hospitality and tourism, if you have worked out how you're going to pivot in this situation, when the government only gives you 3 days to level 4 or another 4 days, it's really hard to make the decision to reallocate the resources into your pivot model to continue going when there's no long-term understanding of what's going to happen. Will we be remaining in level 4? Will we drop down to level 3? Can we do takeaways? Does that mean we need to stock with extra food? All these sorts of considerations become quite frustrating for our business owners. And the next few days will be interesting to see what happens for them. And of course, for the events that are happening in September and October, they have already sunk most of their costs into the event. And if we don't get some clarity about how long we might be in this position, it causes even more frustration, because they don't know whether to pull the pin now and try and reap or hold as much money as they possibly can, or gamble and roll with it and hope that come September that we might pop out of this and they can hold their event. We have already lost a couple of events, 2 Wellington on the Plate events, which were held in August, which is absolutely understandable, but we've just recently lost Jazz in Martinborough, which is an absolute shame. They were affected last year as well because of the lockdown in Auckland. So, I mean, all in all, we're okay. We're certainly much better position than we were last time. But that's not to say in another week's time or another 2 weeks' time, there won't be a whole different ballgame for the tourism industry here.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, just acknowledge the work that you're doing there, and there's never a right time, but I suppose now's a better time than some. But it's certainly going to affect Carterton District Council's events, and those decisions are being made now too. But I'd just like to open it up to questions, please. So, any questions? Robin.
Yeah, thanks, Anna, for the report. And I'm sort of sitting on tenterhooks at the moment with the big way out sale coming up in a couple of weeks. So last year we operated under level 2 very successfully, so we know we can do that. But yeah, for a voluntary organisation, they've already spent the money on advertising, so it is hard. I just had one question around the Regional Events Fund, and this is kind of now the cart going before the horse. I was just the Wairarapa Walking Festival was on our agenda, is on our agenda for today. And I was just wondering whether that a regional events fund might be something that sort of a Wairarapa Walking Festival might be able to tap into.
I've spoken to just lost her name, Celia Wade Brown, about this extensively. And because in this initial sort of startup phase, and she agrees, it's very regionalised. So it's more about establishing the event locally, and then taking it wider in the Greater Wellington region. And the regional, that's my understanding anyway from our conversations earlier. And the Regional Events Fund is for significant inward visitation from outside of the region. And while the festival absolutely ticks all the boxes in terms of the type of event that we'd like to have in this region, it's probably not at the stage yet to be at a position to apply for that fund. And saying that, an expression of interest, if that's something that you're or the team is keen to do, then absolutely put that in, because it will go through the process, and Wellington NZ, their major events team, will review that appropriately in conjunction with the guidelines from MB.
Thank you. No more from me.
Any other questions? No. Oh, well, thank you very much, Anna. Yeah, just again acknowledging what you're doing and what potentially is going to be able to do. And I know the Wairarapa will certainly bounce back very quickly, as it did last time.
Yeah, and I think just on that, last time when we came out of lockdown, it was into, was it May, June, July, and it was we did really well when there was nothing really happening here and it was cold and wet and miserable. We're really energized by the fact that our operators, if they can take some downtime, restock, get everything reset again, because we hit right into our sweet spot. This is where the Wairarapa, when it comes to tourism, we are outstanding, because spring, lambs, daffodils, all those people locked up in Wellington haven't seen the changes in the seasons like we get to see it. And things like the Carterton Spring, the Daffodil Festival are absolutely spot on. And if fingers crossed, if we can get out and we can welcome everybody out over here, we're absolutely going to hit our straps at the most important time for us as a region. And our real job at this point is, when we do come out, to make sure that all of our tourism operators and all the products and services that they have are in danger of being sold every day, all day.
Well, thank you, Anna. It's great. Okay, so what we'll do now, we'll move straight to the recommendation, and there's one recommendation, and that's that we receive the report. So can I have a mover, please? Dale, seconded by Brian. All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against? That's carried. So thank you. Thanks, Anna. Look forward to what you're doing going forward. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Bye.
All right. So now we'll go to item number 7.2, which is the Wairarapa Walking Festival for 2022. And I'd like to introduce Kirsty McCarthy, who will talk to the report. Welcome, Kirsty.
Kia ora, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. So after the last walking and cycling committee meeting, the advisory group, Celia Wade-Brown had presented a review of the event that was held in March this year over 3 days. So I'll take the report as read. We were asked to look at ways we could support the event, bearing in mind that it was not possible for us to run the event ourselves without enough resources. So we've offered up there a few ideas on how we could support the event, how staff can support the event. If you want, I've got some highlights of what happened in the event this year that I could share. So there were 9 different walks held over the Carterton district, and it attracted 120 participants. People were mostly interested in walks where they could learn something about local history or culture, or where they could visit where they hadn't normally been before. And the most popular walk was the Carterton Historical Walk, which attracted 25 people, and the Mangatarere Streambed Walk, which attracted 23 people. Expanding to the whole of the Wairarapa will give a great many more opportunities for more cultural, natural walks and over private land as well. So happy to take questions.
Thank you. So what we'll do first, we won't enter any discussion yet. We'll just have questions. So is there any questions for Kirsty? Robin.
Sorry, I came prepared today. It's not like me. Just a quick question. When you're talking about working with stakeholders and so on, was just any preliminary conversations with our neighbouring councils? Have you had some and just sort of gauging their appetite for a Wairarapa-wide festival?
I haven't had any conversations directly, but I understand Celia has had some initial conversations, but not directly, no.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Jill?
Hey, just wondering, so this $2,000, will this come out of our funding that we're going to decide on next week?
No, we've got a community development, some funding available through the Community Development Fund, which is separate to the Grants Fund. So we could fund it out of there.
And this is a one-off fund, so it's really just to get the walking festival established?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. So your Carterton District Council will help currently, and then hopefully after the 2022 event, they'll be off on their own.
Yes.
Cool. Yep.
Okay. Is there any other questions? Oh, Steve, you got a question? Yep.
Thanks, Greg. Kirsty, I just had one about the on page. Well, you're talking about external administration resource. Working with the council comms team to promote the event. Would that be excluding any funded promotion? So to just be through the like Carterton events Facebook page and so forth?
Yes, so that was the intention, just to use the existing sources that we've got. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, so what I'll do now is we'll just go around each of the elected members and just see if you have any comments. If you don't have any comment, just say no comment. But it's probably the easiest way in this environment. So I'll start with you, Robin.
No further comments. Thank you. Thanks, Kirsty.
Thank you, Steve.
Nothing further from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, I could just add that I spoke with Celia Wade-Brown since the agenda came out, and she's very optimistic that that what council is offering will substantially assist in getting the festival going. So it's obviously more is always better, but what is being offered is going to make a tangible difference She's also in discussion with a couple of local groups, Incorporated Society one and a charitable trust the other, who are likely to partner to help deliver. So there's momentum growing behind this, and I think this could be really good for both Carterton and for the Wairarapa.
Yeah. Thank you, Rob. Brian.
Yeah, good report, Kirsty. Yeah, I think it's all good. I haven't really got much to comment apart from once we find a leader and somebody to steer it in the right direction, we'll be away by the look of it. So good luck and good work. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Dale.
No comment. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Jill, anything from you?
Yeah, like Rob, I've chatted to Celia, so I'm pretty sure we'll get it sorted, and yeah, it'll take off after this next year, which would be great.
Okay, thank you. And Russell?
No comment.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Russell. Just from my point of view, council can be that initial seed funder in quite a few events to get into a stage where they're sustainable, and I believe this is a great event with huge potential for the opportunity to really explore different places that you normally wouldn't. So I'll now go to the recommendation, and there's two recommendations which I'll take together. The first one is we receive the report, and the second one is agrees to option 1. So can I have a mover for that, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Robin. All those in favour, raise your hand, please. Anyone against? No one against, so that's carried. Thank you. And thank you, Kirsty. Well done. Right, so what we'll do now is we go to the next item, which is item 7.3, the approval changes for the Mayor's claims and expenses. So I'll hand it over to Kelly. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you. Hope you can all hear me. Great, thank you. So this report outlines a recommendation, firstly from Audit New Zealand, to consider changing the approval process for the Mayor's expenditure. Previously, it was approved by the CE, but the Mayor would also approve the CE's expenditure. So Audit pointed out the circular approval process and recommended we consider this. So this was taken to the Audit and Risk Committee meeting in May, where it was discussed, and the committee have recommended that the new approval process is the Mayor's expenditure is approved by the chair or the deputy chair of the Audit and Risk Committee and the CE. So this report is bringing the Audit and Risk Committee's recommendation to Council for decision. Happy to take any questions.
So any questions? Okay, I'll be, any comment? No. So, Rob.
I was just going to make the comment for I guess members of the public who may not have been aware of this before. I'd just point out that this was at the lowest end of issues that the auditors would bring up, and that they weren't too concerned as to how long it took that we addressed it. So I was just going to commend Kelly and her team for getting onto it quite quickly, which is all good.
Thank you, Rob. So just a reminder, I'm abstaining from the voting on this, but I'm going to go to the recommendation now, and that's we received the report and agrees to the amended approval process. So can I have a mover, please? Approve number 1 by Dale and seconded by Rob. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. That's carried. Anyone against? Yeah, so it's carried. Thank you. I am missing my paper agenda. Right, so we now move on to item 7.4, which is a local government official information and meetings acts request, and I'll hand that over to Jeff. And just Jeff, I should have done it earlier, but I'd just like to introduce you to everyone who is joining virtually. For those that haven't seen Jeff in the flesh, this is introduce Jeff Hamilton, our new Chief Executive. It's all yours, Jeff.
Kia ora team. Thank you for that, Greg. The report is essentially an update on where we're at with Lagome requests that have come in and our responses to those requests. Where the names of the requesters are private, you won't see them, but where they are public, they will show. So I think there was a request in there from Federated Farmers, will show as a public request. There are a number of, I think there are 7 requests that are still outstanding at the time of writing, and the remainder have been completed. I will take the report as read and ask if there are any questions on it.
So questions? No, there doesn't appear to be any questions. So any discussion? No, no one coming forward for discussion. So we'll go straight to the recommendation. And the recommendation is we receive the report. Can I have a mover, please?
I'll move that.
Moved by Robin, seconded by Rob. All those in favour? Anyone against? It's carried. Thank you. And thank you very much, Jeff.
Cool.
So now we get into the juicy stuff. We got the Carterton Housing Action Plan, and I'd like to welcome, well, no, sorry, I've skipped one. It's still juicy, but Jerry, I'd like to introduce you, and you're going to introduce the staff report.
Tēnā koutou katoa, everyone. Yeah, that's fine. So this is the previous CE's report. So our interim CE adjusted it slightly to become a staff report, in which it is representative from managers of what's happening in the team. So you can see there's quite a lot. So happy to just leave the report as read, but the managers and myself available to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, so I'll open up to questions. So it's an extensive report, so I'll just go around the table. So start with you, Robin. Any questions?
Yeah, great report. It's lots of information, which is awesome. Just had a couple on the community health and wellbeing, with being offered the Rangatahi Hub and also the Gladstone Complex being happy to host vaccinations for the community. I think that's absolutely brilliant. Will that happen if we drop down to level 2 or 3, or will it only be level 1?
So at this stage, that conversation is just on hold while we're in level 4. So they've redeployed all of their resources just to get the vaccination stations that we've got open at the moment. So once we start dropping down levels, I think those conversations about community hubs will start back up.
Yeah, no, great opportunity, and good to see us leading the way in that. And I just had one other on page 77 under the positive ageing, Nuku Ora organising funding for the Senior Games event, and we'll provide support. Is that support dollars or resources from council?
I believe that's just resources from council. Kirsty, are you still there?
Yes, I am. Yeah, it's just resources from council.
Thank you. That's it from me.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Steve.
Thanks, Greg. I just had a couple of questions. One under the wellbeing strategy. I know we talked about this last week, and I'm just wondering whether part of the wellbeing strategy includes the overcapacity in the administration building and the event centre. And the other one was down at the incidents reports during the audit and risk meeting. The figures were quite a bit different. So I'm just wondering if we want to update them while we're going through this. There was 7 near miss incidents and 4 non-injury and 10 incidents. So I just thought it'd be good to update those while we're going through this.
Yeah, no, Dave. So firstly to the wellbeing strategy. So still being developed in terms of what the action plan looks like. During the engagement with our team, with staff, absolutely the building situation was raised, and that is something that is on the radar to address if and when we can. We're going to start the action plan. We'll roll out with some low-hanging fruit, really, what as staff we can do right now to address some of those wellbeing concerns, or the aspect of the building and staffing size is going to probably be a harder ask. So that will be on the back burner in terms of our staff wellbeing strategy. We'll pick that low-hanging fruit first, and then you obviously are all aware of talks around buildings and that more structural stuff. So that will be on the back burner in terms of the staff wellbeing strategy. Just to the incidents, so these incidents reported since the last council meeting. The incidents reported in the audit and risk meeting since the last audit and risk meeting, which is obviously a longer period of time. So that's the difference in the two numbers of what's been reported. So yeah, definitely the ones in the audit and risk had more in them. So well, I guess optimistically is that these ones that are less in the last month that we're pulling those incidents back that happened during the winter period. So.
Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you, Steve. Rob.
Right. Yes. I guess first I wanted to, big shout out to our rangatahi taking part in the Zero Waste Education Program. I think that's really awesome that that's happening and that's being reported here. So that's something to be kind of to celebrate. Pleased to see our climate advisors has joined in with the district plan, the joint district plan committee. She has already been feeding some really useful stuff about cycleways and walking and stuff for consideration. So really pleased to see her taking part there. A couple others, the holiday program. The last holiday program, I had a bit of feedback from the community saying how awesome it was for their kids. They really, really enjoyed it. So please pass that on to the staff. And likewise, Project Pulse. I spoke with a community member who really appreciates that the website changes that are occurring, including that Project Pulse and the newsletter that comes out, is actually achieving some of what we were aiming for with regards to transparency and telling that story. So I just wanted to pass on that's sort of having the desired effect, I think. But otherwise, good report.
Thank you, Rob. Brian?
Sorry, was that me?
Yeah, that's you, Brian.
Oh, sorry. Nothing really to comment apart from a really good, full and comprehensive report put together by all the managers and all the officers. Really good to see. And basically, I've got no questions because everything is explained in it. So well done.
Thank you, Brian. Dale?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Really just to comment, I suppose, on the Mayor's Task Force and the Youth to Work component on the data snapshot, and really just acknowledging Glenda and the team that are working over at Homanu House under or alongside Maria McKenzie. Just the numbers that they're putting through that little building, and that bottom line there of an 80% conversion rate is absolutely outstanding, considering we're dealing with a lot of young people, in some cases that have never had a job or have been some years out of a job, and to get that sort of conversion rate by just sheer hard work and determination from all involved is absolutely outstanding. So just well done, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Dale. That's great. Jill?
Yep, no, it's all been said before, but I did enjoy reading the Zero Waste Education report, which was fantastic. The other question is Daffodil Festival. Have we made a decision yet on whether it will go ahead or not?
Thanks, Jill. We are having a meeting on Friday afternoon to make that call.
Cool. It's me.
Thank you, Jill. And now Russell.
Yeah, no, nothing further to add. Good report. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you, Russell. And just from my perspective, I just want to acknowledge the work that's going on, and especially what's going on in the community. It's outstanding. You know, the influence that we have and bringing people together and making things happen is great. And certainly the updated profile we're having with our communications and telling our stories is really making everyone's job easier, the community's job, our job. So just acknowledge that as well. So is there any other further comment before we go to the recommendation? No? Okay, so we'll go straight to the recommendation, and I've just got to find it again.
Page 94.
Yeah, I just getting there. Just not quite the same as flicking a page in a book. Okay, so we go straight to the recommendation that we received the report. So can I have a mover, please? Brian, and seconded by Dale. All those in favour, say aye. And no one against. So carried. So thank you. And thank you very much, Jerry. Right, so now we move on to the Carterton Housing Action Plan, item 7.6, and Glenda, I'll hand it over to you.
So I will take the report as read, but just a bit of background. So when we did the big jar of ideas for the consultation last year, it came through quite clearly that there was lots of discussion around housing and affordable housing. So at that stage, we decided not to wait until LTP was signed off, but to get on and do some research and some background information and create the housing action plan. So this work started back in January. We've done a couple of workshops. We've done the housing stock take for Carterton, and we've done some interviews with some other councils to see what they're doing. So I think out of the recommendations we chose 3 of the recommendations, which was the status quo, which is we continue our current approach, and CDC is an enabler, which was focusing on developments, looking at inclusionary zoning, keeping updated with our district plan, and then us as an intermediary as well, which was working on our relationships and partnerships and all of that sort of stuff. So going through that, we came up with our housing action plan, which is attached, and within that was the implementation plan and how we're going to do that. So is there any further questions?
So we'll just do questions first. So can you just raise your hand if you've got a question? Jill. Oh, you're on mute, Jill.
Just a real quickie. I was about to look. Is this particular version of the housing action plan on the website yet, or if so, when will it go on after this meeting?
Go on after this meeting.
Awesome.
No other further questions. By the look of it, I know we've workshopped this quite a bit, and we've put a lot of thought into getting to this stage. But I'll hand it over. We'll go around the table. So Steve, any comment from you?
No, I'd just like to thank everyone for the input they've had into this. I think it's great.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Rob?
Yeah, no, I think the plan itself is awesome. I would just urge us all to sort of think about what are the next steps. We need to sort of keep this sort of at the front so that it keeps popping up to instruct and direct, you know, sort of the next stages, next work. There's no real, I guess, implementation plan for this. It's about kind of including it and remembering it each time we're faced with a question that might impact housing. So obviously the district plan review comes into it, but other policies and bylaws and stuff as well. So we just need to keep it to the forefront.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Brian?
Yeah, as already been said by yourself, Greg and Steve, that we have put a lot of work into it and workshopped it quite extensively. So yeah, I'm pleased with where we have landed, and yeah, look forward to the implementation of it, and just as you say, keep it in the back of our minds. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Dale?
Yeah, what Brian said, thank you, Your Worship.
Yeah, thank you, Dale. Jill?
Yep, what Brian said, thank you.
Good on you, Brian. Robin?
Yeah, reiterate what everybody else said, and also to acknowledge Rebecca Vergunst for her work in driving this and getting this onto the table and in front of us. I think it's really, really important, and reiterate what everybody else said. We need to have this front and centre of our minds going forward, and I think it feeds really nicely into the combined district plan review that we're working on. So well done, team. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Robin. Yes, and Rebecca was at the forefront of driving this and kept us all honest, just as Glenda and the team did as well. Russell.
Yeah, no, I think it's all been said. Nothing really further to add to it.
Okay, thank you, Russell. Yeah, so just to sum it up, I think it's fantastic. The timing couldn't be better, and we knew what we got ahead of us. This is the perfect tool we need to go forward. So yeah, thank you, everyone. So we'll go straight to the recommendations, which I'll just find them again, sorry. Page 106. So we just have two recommendations. The first one, we received the report, and the second, we adopt the Carterton Housing Action Plan. And who would like to move that? Robin, and seconded by Brian. All those in favour, raise your hand, please. Say aye. Yep. Aye. It's unanimously carried. No one against, so it's carried. Thank you. And thank you, Glenda. So now we move on to page 162, item 7.8, which is the elected members' accountability reports. So the reports by me, so they're the reports of all the elected members. So I'll take it as read. Is there any questions? No? No comment? Any discussion? No. So thank you all for putting them through, and we'll go to the recommendation then, which is we received the report. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Rob. All those in favour? Aye. Anyone against? No, so carried. Thank you. So now we move on to item 7.9, which is the water supply investigation, and I'll hand it over to Dave. That's on page 178 of the agenda. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you, Your Worship. This really comes out of the Eastern Growth Strategy that was put in front of Policy and Strategy at their last committee meeting, and they were wanting to investigate a greater density of housing in the Eastern Growth than what had at first been put forward. And so part of the investigation work was a recommendation to bring forward the additional water supply review or investigation, another investigation. So this is where this paper had been driven from to come to council. You'll see that the investigation financial allocation had already been set aside into the LTP, so it's bringing that forward. Are there any questions on that?
So yeah, any questions, Rob?
I just wanted to clarify that this sort of investigation would be capitalised against the project. So the bringing it forward as borrowing is it would have been borrowing in the future as well. Is that correct?
Yes, it was.
Cool.
Thank you, Rob. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got a couple for Dave. Dave, in your comments, current water supply levels are adequate for the immediate future. Is that immediate 3 to 5 years or up to 10? Or I know it's crystal ball gazing.
Oh, it's not too bad. So the in the 2018-28 LTP, we had signalled in the 2028 the as a date and a holding mark to put in to actually build the infrastructure for the new water source or whatever is required, depending on what the options analysis turns up. So probably towards the end of the decade is up to the immediate future with it and with current use.
Yeah, thanks for that. And that leads me on to the next question. The investigation for the extra water source options and analysis, that obviously has been brought forward to 21-22. Are we looking at new sources or just quality at this stage?
The options analysis is to look for an additional source, and really the outcome of that options analysis could drive a substantial or not, depending on what the option does, substantial infrastructure investment. So it's prudent to have a really sound options analysis first up before we launch into any infrastructure build. So it's for new water source, not water quality, although that would come into it.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Brian and Dave. Any other questions? Yes, Steve.
I've just got one just to do with the new tanks, Dave, and you mentioned about the peak times and the drawdown and so forth. I'm guessing with the tanks are proposed to be installed before Christmas, is that right? With peak times normally through the summer, will that mean that the tanks won't be looked at being filled till we head into more winter of next year?
No, the tanks can be filled as soon as they are commissioned, as soon as they're ready. The tank water will go through. We could use the source from the Kaipatangata and feed it into the tanks, or actually we can feed from the bores. The bore take for a daily consent is something like twice the value that we have on our restrictions, so 2,500 cube. We have somewhere available about 5,500 to be able to take on a per daily basis. So we have plenty of water available for the current needs. It's just that high drawdown, so it sort of trickles into a small tank. And so those high drawdown periods really drain that tanks, which is why we need the restrictions. We can feed those bigger tanks. We can just keep the bores running 24/7 and fill them, or run off the Kaipatangata and fill straight from there. So no, it's not as soon as we are able to, and that was the idea of pushing the suppliers to have it in prior to summer, is so that we can actually hopefully have that source available, or backup source available over the summer, and not need to go into restriction.
That's great. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Steve. Any other further questions? No. So now open up to discussion. Is there any discussion? Robin.
Just outlining on the risks where not taking a water options analysis may delay the rezoning. I think you mentioned the word prudent before, Dave, and I think it's absolutely prudent that we do the investigations now. We need to be able to be in a position where we can expedite the Eastern Growth Strategy. And also with the 3 water reform looming over us, we don't know what's coming, whether we choose to stay opt-in or opt-out, or whether it's actually going to be mandated. But if this is in the pipeline, excuse the pun, then we're going to be standing in a much better stead for our infrastructure and growth, and dovetails in perfectly with the Housing Action Plan that we've just adopted. So I think for me, it's a huge risk if we don't do this water analysis sooner rather than later. And great report, thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Very, very pertinent comment too. Is there any other comments? No? Okay, well, thank you, Dave. And we'll go straight to the recommendations. And there's 2 recommendations. First one is we receive the report, and the second one is we agree to bringing forward the planned option and analysis for an additional water source to the current year's activities. So I'll take them both together. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Brian. All those in favour, raise your hand, please. Anyone against? No, that's carried. So thank you. Thank you, Dave. So now we move to the last item on the agenda, which is item 7.10 on page 183, which is approval for removal of the Wairarapa Library Service overdue fees. And Glenda, welcome you back.
Thank you. So this one here, the Wairarapa Joint Wairarapa Library Services Committee met on the 18th of August. So the Wairarapa Library Services are moving from Kotui, which is their old system, into Spiders, which is their new system, and to be as smart libraries and connect with all the rest of the libraries. To align with that, they did need to remove their overdue fee charges. So at the meeting on the 18th, the Wairarapa Library Services Committee agreed to this, and they just were bringing this to the full council for approval, I think. So the other option, the other thing that we needed to do was, in the long-term plan, we had the removal of was it our late fees, which would be taking effect on the 31st of December, and we just wanted to bring that and the removal of the overdue fees up to the 12th of August, which will align with the new system taking effect and starting later in October. Sorry, October, not August.
Okay, thank you, Glenda. So questions first? Okay, so there's no questions. So Steve and Dale, I know you sit on the library committee. Is there any comment from you to start with?
Thanks, Greg. I'm all for this happening. I look at it that if people out in the community are not going to utilise our library service because they have a minimal fine to pay, I think we need to remove that so that they can retain their access to the library. So I'm all for removing the overdue fees.
Okay, thank you. Dale.
Yeah, I agree with Steve. I mean, you know, the costs of collecting and managing such a minimal amount outweighs the benefits. And, you know, just like having someone collect money at the swimming pool, it's the same sort of philosophy. We want to encourage and incentivize the behavior that we're seeking, which is people making use of our facility and taking books away to read them, and putting in a penalty on overdue just actually creates more problems than it's worth. So I completely support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. So open up for other comment. Rob?
No, I agree with Dale. Just like the swimming pool, I'm quite happy to remove the fees.
Okay, thank you. Jill? Oh, you're on mute, Jill.
Yeah, all good from me.
Okay, thank you. Brian?
You know, all good for me. It all makes sense to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Robin?
Fully in favour, thank you.
Cool, thank you. And Russell?
Yep, all good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so there's no further comment. I'm in line with you guys. We'll go straight to the recommendations. Now there's 3 of them there. The first one is we received the report. The second one was we agreed to the cessation of overdue fines from the 12th of October 2021. And the third one is agrees to align the date of cessation of reserve fees agreed under the Carterton District Council's 2021-22 long-term plan to the 12th of October 2021 and update the council's fees and charges schedules accordingly. So I'm going to take all 3 of them together. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Steve, seconded by Dale. All those in favour? No one against? No, so carried. Thank you very much. And thank you, Glenda, and thank you for those on the library committee. I know it's been a long time coming, getting everything aligned, especially across the Wairarapa. So thank you very much. Okay, so that brings us to almost the conclusion of the meeting. We have no exclusion of the public section. So we'll go straight to the closing karakia. And Rob, so I ask you to, would you like to do that again, please?
Kia ora, me noi tātou. Tuku atu wairua kia rere ki ngā taumata hei arahi a tātou mahi, me tā tātou whai I ngā tikanga a rātou mā. Kia mau, kia ita, kia kore ai engaro, kia pupuri, kia whakamaua, kia tēnā, haumie, huie, tāi ki e.
Kia ora, Rob, thank you very much. And I now officially declare the meeting closed. So thank you, everyone. It's been a great meeting.